Hey, Kris, welcome to the show. You know, it's right now it's January and everybody is either packing the gyms, right? They're loading up on their gym membership, or they're buying all kinds of equipment, or they're buying all kinds of different weight loss programs. Um, and that's kind of your forte, right? Into the, you came from the bodybuilding world and all that stuff. Let's kind of start there with, your bio, your background, and kind of jump off from there.
Yeah, for sure. So, number one, thank you so much for having me on the show. It's an absolute
Absolutely.
honor to speak to your audience here. But yeah, the accent is from Wales, one from Wales originally.
Love
And
it.
I got into bodybuilding, natural bodybuilding, initially from so many injuries. I raced motocross for many, many years. Straight after motocross, I went into downhill mountain bike racing. So, a lot of adrenaline associated with it, but a lot of injuries as well. And it wasn't until I actually started doing weight training, resistance training, that I started to get alleviated of the pain associated with my injuries, my back being the major injury. And so I went down that rabbit hole. I really enjoyed the discipline, the focus, the scheduling, the routine of that, and having a sense of urgency to focus on something that's okay. If it's a bodybuilding show a year and a half, 2 years away, we better focus on every day now because that will dictate my tomorrow.
Yeah.
And it had a transcendence effect in my life. On now, I had better cognitive function because I'm getting better blood flow to my brain. I'm eating better foods. And I went to college to study international health and sports therapy for 3 years because I just found it fascinating how I could live on a higher vibration. I felt like I was a different person and I could look back on a person that I was before, even though I was competing in various sports. I struggled with school. I struggled with, the cognitive synapses function that I really craved that I could see other kids had. But now I felt that I was living it within myself, especially now I'm associating bodybuilding with discipline, timing, respect of other people's time, and being a lot more focused, throughout the day. So I went down that rabbit hole, and then I was a personal trainer for many years. I owned a gym in Australia. I own a franchise of gyms now, which I call academies in India to help educate not only the clientele, but the personal trainers there as well. And I just really like to see the transformations that I witness, not just from a physical perspective, from the neck down, but from the neck up. And my job, like you said, this time of year is try to get people to go past January, where their best intentions tend to fall down because 8% of people who embark on a transformation are the success. The rest fail. Okay. So they will finish a transformation, let's say it's 6, 8, 12 weeks. But now an even lesser portion of that 8% actually keep the weight off or make a lifestyle out of it. So of course, yes, there's a boot camp, but you should make this a lifestyle. It isn't just about your vessel, your carcass. It's about the lifeline and living a higher purpose of a higher self.
Why do you think that the numbers are like that? Why do you think that 92% of them they fail?
Because motivation fails us. People say, oh, how do I stay motivated? Don't focus on motivation, focus on discipline, because you're going to wake up after 3 hours of sleeping, you're going to go, forget it, it's cold outside, I'm not going to lace up my shoes and go out for a run. Or maybe you've had an argument with your partner and now you're not motivated to work out, you're motivated to eat donuts. So you focus on discipline, discipline of doing the same thing as you did yesterday, but doing it better and being committed to the cause instead of getting influenced by friends who want to take you out on drinks, or there's another office gathering where someone's brought out the cake and motivation is down, or you're hungry, or you're tired, and now you fall for that. And then the next thing, it's a vicious circle because you feel bad. How do you feel better? By eating bad food again, or drinking alcohol. So I try to get my clients, and I do it myself, and I focus on discipline. Whether I like it or not, I'll get in an ice bath every morning. I'm not telling you to jump in an ice bath, but maybe have a cold shower the next time that you want a warm shower. So you get used to doing the things that you don't want to do on the days that you don't want to do it, such as not hitting your snooze button. So it has a transcendence effect in so many other areas of your life. So if you do go to the buffet and you see all this food in front of you, You have the discipline within you to say, no, I'm just going to pick out the foods that are going to fulfill me, that are going to feed my lifeline, that are going to provide me the antioxidants of protein for cognitive function, for, so I can, have a longer lasting biological age instead of having, indications of health implications at a younger age.
How, how did you develop that discipline?
By baby steps, by baby steps.
Yeah.
Like when I gave up, motocross and downhill mountain biking, because I was so addicted to adrenaline, that become up part of my identity.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when I lost that through injuries, I turned to alcohol, I turned to drugs. So my first initial baby step was to replace that with something. Okay, what could I replace that with? What would give me the adrenaline that I'd missed out on, that now drugs and alcohol was fulfilling. And I found out it was exercise, weirdly enough, because that releases endorphins. So
Mm.
whether that be mountain biking or body, weight training, that was fulfilling for me. And then I looked to the next thing. What is the next thing that I can do on a daily basis? Well, I'm going to write in my journal because that accountability is so powerful to me, and transparency. So maybe I'm going to tell 5 friends that I'm not going to hit the snooze button for the next month. And then the following month, I'm going to go, okay, what's my next challenge? I'm going to see if I can run so many miles throughout the month of February. And then the next one will be, I am going to have a cold shower every single day through the month of March, and then so on and so forth. And then it has an accumulative effect.
What was the biggest thing that you did, as far as like, if you're going on that journey trying to develop that discipline, and say you fail, right? Say like you were supposed to go and do your workout or whatever, and then you just didn't get to it. What was the biggest thing for you to help turn that around?
It was definitely transparency, telling people.
Mm.
So, telling people not only within my social circle, but online. So back at this time when I was
Yeah.
definitely failing there, online resources had just become apparent. So this is going back in like 2008, 2009. Bodybuilding.com had a community that was like Facebook, but for fitness enthusiasts, called Body Space. So I just found becoming transparent on it, telling people where my failures were and what I needed to do to, try to get myself back on track, was extremely powerful, because I had so much encouragement, so much advice from other people that I'd never met before from all around the world. And then I'd see other people's struggles. So now all of a sudden, through their struggles, you're contributing, which again provides more accountability to yourself. And, by being transparent like that, you really do put your sincerity on the line. So you really don't want to fail.
I love that you say that, because in this day and age of social media, we see the highlights of everybody's life, right? And, you know, and this is a big thing around body composition and aesthetics, is when the average person, they're trying to get to where, like a person like where you're at. And then they see, oh my gosh, that person, they have the perfect physique. I ate a cupcake today, therefore I'm, I'll never get there. But I love that you said transparency, because everybody wants to also see, hey, is that person human, right? Do they make the same mistakes as I do? And and I see this a lot on social media, when people then share their vulnerabilities, when they be transparent, it kind of lets everybody else say, hey, on the same journey, I'm on the same road, and it allows them to, you know, pick up where they left off, and get back to where they need to be going, and the topic around strength training, there's so many ideas, right? And it's like, okay, what do you lift 4,000 pounds, right? Do you go to the gym and you squat 8 million pounds and all that kind of stuff, so you can look like the Incredible Hulk? Or or do I jump on my Peloton for 400 days and try to get thin? What Talk about some of the myths that you commonly encounter about strength training and just exercise in general.
Well, number one, people think I work out for a living, which couldn't be further from the truth. But a misconception. It all depends on the culture. It depends on the country that I get those questions.
Hmm.
For instance, in India, I'll get people question all the time. Supplements are the same as steroids. So
Oh,
that's a common misconception that if I take that protein powder, my hair's going to fall out. When I explain that, look, it's
I
just dairy without the lactose
yeah.
and the fats. Maybe they get it, maybe they don't. But I'd say, a lot of the things around it, like strength training, and like you said, do you have to lift that amount of weight? Then no, of course. Your body has no idea where your failure point is, with just by looking at the amount of pounds that are on a leg press. It doesn't know numbers. It doesn't know calculation. It
Yeah.
just knows if you push it a little bit more than you did the day before, that creates what's called a hormetic response. That hormetic response allows your body to adapt and evolve, whether you're trying to improve your performance, your fitness, fat loss, muscle building, strength, whatever. You just do a little bit more than what you did before. Now, like, I don't go to the gym and train for 1 rep or 2 reps or even six,
Mm.
8 reps max. I usually train at higher repetitions because it works for me. Like, I've got a very small, I got very small joints, so I get injured. I've had a lot of injuries from various sports, and I understand if I'm to push heavy load and heavy weight, all of a sudden I'm going to get injured within the gym, and I'm not going to be a happy person. Because the reason why I go to the gym, of course, I want to look good, I want to feel good, I want to have more confidence, I want to have more energy, but it's mental therapy for me. That's what it is.
Love
I
it.
want to get my, I want to get my adrenaline fix. I want to get my endorphin fix, and I get that from the gym. So it makes me feel good. And if I'm injured and I'm not training like I'd like to train, then now it's not a good feeling. So, I deal with a lot of people who have various mental issues, whether that be depression, frustration, anger, anxiety, whatever. And I just say, let's start exercising. Let's get your output. I know you don't feel like going out, but let's just start off with walking the dog or walk around the block twice a day, whatever it may be. And then we build upon it from there. And it's the same reason why I do my ice baths on a daily basis. Now, people go, wow, that's crazy. But I do that for my mental stability as well. Like, there's a lot of attributes that I get from working out in the ice baths, such as blood sugar stability. And obviously, like I said, getting that endorphin rush. But by getting in the ice bath every day, it tones what's called your vagal nerve. So by toning that vagal nerve at the back of your neck, that puts you in that fight or flight response. So it helps with emotional stability. And these are the main reasons why I exercise and why I do cold thermogenesis. Look, you can have a cold shower, that's absolutely fine. But that's what I suggest to the majority of my clients as well. And of course, we all want to be harder to kill, right?
Yeah, exactly. You know, when I talk with patients about, going and doing some type of exercise, they hate that word, right? Nobody wants to hear the word exercise. And do you find that with your clients, that if there's some type of goal in mind of why you're doing, an exercise routine, that it helps them to, one, stay disciplined when
Yeah, for sure. Of course, and it all depends on that person as well. So if that person has children, then I'll use their kids as
yeah,
clickbait. Okay, you want to be there around for your kids. You want to
yeah,
inspire kids. You want to play with them as they're getting a little bit older. So I'll use that as the, and if there's something that in the family, there could be a genetic disposition to that person having heart disease or whatever it may be, then we're going to use today as our preventative medicine for the future. Because you don't want to be 18, 90 years old and now you're stuck in a retirement home, or even worse, you're in a hospital, or even worse, that you're on your deathbed.
yeah,
You have the controlling seat right now. Unfortunately, a lot of people wait until it's too late in order to live a life of regret and try to change things. And what I try to do is prevent that. And the more that I talk and discuss that it's much more than, say, getting pecs and bicep peaks, it's something much more deeper down, and it's your life, that the most valuable thing that you've been given, then the better it gets through to them. Like, I have a lot of successful clients from a financial aspect or business,
Mhm.
but they're failing at life. And I try to transcend and change their way of thinking that their priority is their life, not their business. The business comes secondary. It shouldn't take over their steering wheel to navigate them to an early grave.
Do you find that that also applies to those that, one wouldn't consider financially successful, that they may be failing in some other aspect in life that they don't necessarily know about
Of
or are
course.
aware about? Yeah.
Yeah, of course. And you know what? The weird thing is that when I start working with clients, and it's not just myself, other trainers encounter this as well. Once that person, let's say if they're not financially secure, let's call that term.
Yeah.
Once they start taking a good grasp of their life, and now they have more focus, they have more energy, they have more vibrancy, they're able to focus on the things that they want to do in life and become a leader because they've empowered themselves. So now they can empower their surroundings as opposed to being told what to do because they're just going through the motions and they don't have the energy to even think for themselves. So usually they put themselves in a better financial position once they start taking a good grasp over their health.
A lot of people don't make that connection, right? They really compartmentalize all these different aspects, but they fail to see how intertwined they all are. And one of the things that I see with patients is how their marriages are affected by, one, their physique, their health, and how that has just wide ramifications. If we start seeing them slip in their physical fitness, and then that starts to affect their metabolic fitness, and then it just snowballs from there. With their relationships, with their relationship with with other humans, with their relationships with food and addictive measures, and they start to look for those things that create that dopamine response. And that's when we see all these destructive behaviors, these destructive addictions, rather than what you talked about, which was you turn those destructive addictions into constructive addictions, to where now the things that you're obsessed about become something that builds you up rather than tears you down. How did or how do you help other people if they're stuck in that rut? How do you help them develop that mindset?
So it's usually just a form of discipline to begin with. So I find out what their creature comforts are. Let's say it's Netflix. Okay,
Ah,
what we're going to do, you've got you think that you're educating yourself or you're entertaining yourself. Let's try that with music. Okay, you got a vinyl record player. Let's try some music, and now maybe some reading. Maybe it's an audiobook if you don't like to read. So try to replace that with something a little bit more constructive and exercise their brain as opposed to just let it lay back on the couch and just, I don't know, just switch off. We're trying to switch off that cognitive function. So it's always trying to find exactly what that particular person's comfort is and then replace it with something that's maybe attractive to a form of entertainment. But then we try to put that into productivity. So that productivity, okay, you've read that book or you've listened to this music. What did you like about it? I get them to journal it down. Write a synopsis about this book, summarize it for me. What were the highlights for it if you were to teach someone else? And then we just kind of work from there. So it isn't just from a physical aspect, it's all mental. It's all mental for the majority of time, dependent on that individual. Maybe that individual has done this before and they've just had an injury and they've fallen off, but they can get back into it and they're mentally strong. And I've had that from several clients. But a lot of the time, it comes from the mental aspect of just retraining their brain to prioritize what's important to themselves instead of going for comfort, comfort, comfort. Because if you look at the phone, the computer, you can get DoorDash, you can order from Amazon. You don't need to leave the couch. And the couch is our biggest culprit at the moment to, heart disease and cancer and whatnot, So we try to control their environment instead of allowing them to get controlled by it.
say somebody comes to you and they're just in, the worst shape of their life.
Mhm.
Where where would you start them? How would you start them back on the path to where they need to be? Walk us through some of those things.
Okay, sleep, number one. So you'll notice that I'm wearing blue light blocking glasses right now because obviously,
Yeah.
I've got harsh artificial light here. I got light surrounding me. So I always get them to focus on their sleep, number one, because the majority of my clients that are extremely out of shape, like I'm talking clinically obese, over 300 pounds, chances are they're sleeping very late and they're getting very little sleep. Not all the time, but the majority of the time. So I get it to, slowly bring their time to bed a little bit earlier. I look like a party animal, tattoos here and whatnot. I'm in bed at 7:30 every night because I know that my cortisol levels are going to continue to stay high at a later time when I should be detoxing my brain, my body, keeping my cortisol levels low because with the activity that I have and the stress of work, I know my cortisol levels rise quite easy. And then number two after that is hydration. Again, the majority of the people that I deal with are dehydrated. They drink coffee, they drink tea, they drink sodas, energy drinks, and think that's hydrating them when in fact a lot of it has a diuretic effect. So I focus on them having electrolytes in their water, possibly antioxidants as well to help ward off some of the free radical damage and just hydrate that person. And then it is daily movement outside, trying to get that vitamin D, exposure and getting outside a little bit where they're not taking music with them, they're not taking an audiobook, and they're not taking their phone at all. So they are just out there being present, okay, listening to their breath, their feet walking on the ground or whatever, because the majority of the people are looking for distraction and they're not focusing on themselves and they're not focusing on the movement or the food that's in front of them. And lastly, I get them to focus on slowing down when they're eating. So they're putting
Mm.
down their fork in between bites. They're putting their hands on their laps. They're not on a computer. They're not scrolling on their phone. They're not watching TV. They are taking their time. Sometimes I'll refer to the book, The Slow Down Diet, for them to understand that they have to be in a sympathetic state in order to properly digest their food. And it could take about 20 minutes for that signal to go off in their brain to say, you are full now. Because if they've wolfed down all their food in 10 minutes or less, chances are they're going to overeat as well. So that's where it usually starts with absolute basics.
Do you do anything to track those things?
In regards to their sleep, yeah, quantification. So, for instance, if they've got like an Aura Ring or a Whoop or Apple Watch or anything like that, will quantify their sleep. Dependent on that person, I may get them to wear a 24-hour blood glucose monitor to ensure that they're eating little and often and nothing that's going to cause a huge spike and then continue to have that spike. If that is the case, I'll usually get them to do a little bit of exercise after each meal. That could be sitting and standing at their desk 30 times, for instance. Yeah, and I'd say, what was it, sleep, hydration? No, what I do with the hydration, depending on the size of the bottle that they have, I'll get them to put a little bit of tape on the side of the bottle and they mark it off every time they drink a bottle so they can keep track exactly how much they're hydrating themselves by.
One of the things that I find with patients and using quantification things, like the Whoop, Aura, Apple Watch, is they kind of get married to the numbers,
Yeah.
and it almost drives frustration for them, where
Yeah.
they're
It's like weighing themselves every day.
right, exactly, right. It's kind of like watching grass grow, and they're like, you know, I went to sleep last night, but my HRV still sucks. You
Yeah.
know, what is the things that you talk over with them to kind of get them over that hump?
Well, I don't really get that too much, but I usually just tell them, look, we're not going to get caught up in the numbers. If that person's just wanting to lose weight, we're going to go by the mirror more than anything, how you feel. Because I only had a client this morning get on an in-body machine and
Yeah.
say, oh my God, my weight has gone up. But we could see that their muscle had gone up, their body fat had actually come down. But don't worry about that. It's like I compete in Ironman triathlon. I don't care about my FTP and my watt power output and all that sort of stuff if I'm still getting a good time and I feel good in my result. So I don't get caught up with it. I try to get them to realize that there's balance between ancestral wisdom and quantification and biohacking today. So if I can get someone to earth themselves every day, I'm going to get them to go outside first and, take their shoes and socks off as opposed to using a grounding mat inside.
Yeah.
And same thing with sunlight. If you can get outside, great sunlight, But if not, then we have to rely on biohacking and do red light therapy.
Yeah.
So it's always ancestral wisdom before, the biohacking and the quantification.
I love that you jumped into biohacking because a lot of people they want to start there, right? They want to get
The
the
shiny object.
right, they want to get the Juve panels, they want to get, the grounding mat, they want to get the next, shiny object thing. But you talked about ancestral wisdom. With that said, what because there are some people they're like, yeah, okay, I do that, I want to get to that next level, I want to maximize my health, my metabolic health. What are some of your favorite biohacks, tricks and techniques and all that stuff?
Okay, well, I'll start off with a trick first, or a technique, I should say, is start off your day and finish your day without any devices for at least an hour. I try to get my clients to go for 2 hours, 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening, bookend yourself to kind of focus on, meditation, stretching, just be reading, just being present, absolute present, because the majority of people aren't. And that's why we look back and go, wow, that was 15 years ago. Where did the time go? Because we're never present. We're always worrying about the future, stressing about the past. So that's number one. Number two would be, like I love the fact of earthing, grounding yourself, especially now we're exposed to so much dirty electricity, EMFs, etc. But that may be a little bit woo-woo for some people. But hot and cold thermogenesis, I think, is phenomenal. So on a daily basis, I try to get in a sauna at least 5 days a week, to help detoxify. Like I do have a slightly higher level of heavy metal contaminants in my body, and a lot of people do, from the fillings in their mouth, from the pollutants, from our food supply of heavy metal contaminants. So, getting in the sauna is a great way of detoxifying and collating a lot of toxins out of your body. And like I said, the cold thermogenesis, just getting in a cold shower and having the cold water, on your neck can really help with that emotional stability, but also help with fatty acid mobilization. There's a lot of benefits from that, nitric oxide production, etc. And obviously with the sauna helping increase heat shock protein to help folded and damaged DNA. So, there's a lot of studies that show that it can help prevent the onset of aging in a lot of Finnish studies by getting in a sauna. So those are going to be my big ones. Of course, I have a plethora, I have a long list that I encourage dependent on that person, but that's where I get people usually to start. And, if you're not like me and I've got like, I've got the yellow bulbs here and I've got the red bulbs upstairs. So in the light bulb, so it looks like a brothel upstairs in our house. Unless you're going to go to that extent, then wear the blue light blocking glasses and do everything you can to mitigate the damage of a lot of the artificial light that we expose ourselves with, that constant flicker that raises our cortisol levels.
Yeah, you alluded to the aging process.
Yeah.
Um, let's talk a little bit about the difference between, biological aging, and your physiological age and all that stuff.
Sure. So I'm 47. I'll be 48 this year. Now, when I had kind of really went down the biohacking rabbit hole in 2014, I had my biological age test,
Hmm.
and I was older biologically than chronologically, and which was a shock to me because I thought, here I am. I've been following like the bodybuilding lifestyle and eating
Yeah.
my proteins, my vegetables, and my complex carbs, whatever. Shouldn't I be have a lower biological age? But I wasn't sleeping much. I was dealing with a lot of stress. I wasn't caring if, well, none of the food I think I was eating was organic, grass-fed, wild-caught, humane raised, or anything like that. And a lot of the supplements that I was taking was just purely focused on performance. And that was it,
Yeah.
like pre-workout, caffeine, creatine. I wasn't considering things that are possibly of anti-aging benefits like NMN, glutathione, high antioxidant, hydrogen-rich water. I didn't even know what that was. So that's when I started going down the rabbit hole and looking, okay, there's possibly mold toxins in this coffee, so I'm not going to have that type of coffee. I'm not going to eat this type of food unless it's grass-fed, wild-caught, humane raised, etc. So that's what really, really did it for me. And then I started quantifying my age. every year, and I've been able to reduce my biological age every single year since then in 2014. So my most recent biological age test came back at 26 years old, even though I'm 47. And, that is the goal, to continue to do so. And not only do I see that in the numbers, I feel it as well. I feel so much better than what I did 6 years ago. I felt inflamed, in my joints. I felt like my cognitive function wasn't as quick as it possibly could. And I suffered from asthma since a little kid, and I noticed that I've been able to eradicate that inflammatory response as well, so I can breathe better. I'm functioning better. I'm fitter. So I'm going to continue going down that rabbit hole because that's a purpose of mine. It's a passion of mine. And then whatever, I always say knowledge without mileage is bull. So if I can pass that on to someone else based on my observational studies on myself, then that's what I'll do.
One of the things that we're reading about a lot is that the most common factor behind all diseases is aging, right?
Mhm.
And it's, a lot of people are being exposed to things like you just said, NMM, and looking at the role that NAD has, the role of the mitochondria, and all the things that affects the mitochondria, where if our mitochondria aren't working properly, then we're not making enough energy. We're not making enough energy, then we start to lose that ability for different metabolic processes to function, right? Protein folding starts getting a little bit iffy, and we start to accumulate these senescent cells, and we then become older faster. And to look at the state of the world that we're in, where we got the pandemic going on, and how our metabolic health, metabolic flexibility or inflexibility, and our physiological age, all of those things, when we start diving into the research, we start to see that those things have a huge impact on it, where the people who have those markers and it all tends towards inflammation, they tend to do or have poorer outcomes with any type of infection. And we see a lot of people now turning towards diet, supplementation, exercise regimens, and I think I always like to look at things as there's always a positive side to it. And I see the pandemic really allowing people to take a look at all of those things and really researching, right? And they're looking for more answers other than what we've been told in mainstream media. Um, for you, what are some of the things, just from a nutritional aspect, that you would recommend somebody to help improve their biological age and just decrease inflammation overall?
For sure. Thank you very much. It's a great question. So, as I alluded to before, dependent on that person, if they're a carnivore, if they're following keto, if they're vegetarian, plant-based, whatever, just try to go wild caught, grass-fed, organic, humane raised whenever possible, because the majority of antibiotics that are consumed by humans are not from the pharmacy, it's from the food that we eat. Because a lot of the time they're pumped full of antibiotics. And obviously, we want to look after our gut microbiome because that's where the majority of our immunity is built.
Mhm.
So, we want to make sure that we're not having a lot of antibiotics that could create some form of gut dysbiosis or leaky gut syndrome. So, always look at then, good probiotics. And, that could be from goat's kefir. It could be from kimchi and sauerkraut, and then a good probiotic dependent on that person's gut microbiome as well. There's various tests that we can do, like from Biome, for instance, that tells us exactly what that gut microbiome looks like. And then, making sure that you're having good prebiotic fiber as well. So dependent on that person, if they have to shy away from nightshades, we'll remove that from their diets. But, I always tell people, try to eat the rainbow when you're eating a meal.
Right.
And then there could be a form of fasting within there as well. So with clients that I have that are performance based, they're weight trainers, they're triathletes or motocross riders, then I'll get them on a controlled fast. And when I say controlled, then they're taking essential amino acids. They're taking fermented glutamine and things like that as well to help prevent some of that possible catabolism because they're living very, very active lifestyles, you know. So that's where it usually starts. And then from there, again, based on possible deficiencies. So as an example, I don't absorb vitamin D through photobiomodulation or photosynthesis. So I have to supplement high with vitamin D and K2. And again, my liver doesn't break down a lot of the omegas. So I don't, sorry, my liver enzymes can become inflamed. So I have to supplement high with omega oils. So it all depends on that person, is dependent on the supplements or the food groups that I get them on more than anything.
I love that you mentioned all of that because everybody, with social media, they see, oh, so and so celebrities taking XYZ supplement. They're doing 4 million IUs of vitamin D. Therefore, I'm going to do that as well because I want to be like them. Um, but you talked about biochemical individuality, where everybody has a specific need at that specific point in time, according to their genomic makeup, and their physiological stressors and all of the things that's impacting their body. And it's important to know those things, right? I mean, and the things that you alluded to are, I mean, you can know those things just from simple tests, that,
Yeah,
right? It
exactly.
doesn't cost that much, right? To do all those things. Um, Now, with that said, you tell somebody, okay, I want you to eat wild, grass-fed, organic. Um, when they come back to you and they say, Kris, I just can't afford all the things that you're talking to me about. What would you say to that person?
You do what you can, obviously. It's like when I started weight training and into bodybuilding, I couldn't afford protein powders or anything like that. I could barely afford food. I was eating, tins of tuna and gagging that down with dry potatoes, you know. So I
Mhm.
did what I can, and that's what I encourage everybody. Just do what you can. Obviously, there are supplements that can help break down, like the glyphosates, like iron from Dr. Zach Bush. So, you can take that with certain food groups that can really, really help. So there's usually a way around it. But look, if somebody just doesn't have the financial income in order to support grass-fed, humane raised, organic, you do what you can. Don't use that as an excuse or justification not to start.
Yeah, yeah. Um, what are some of the things that you want to leave our audience with? Like some of the last thoughts that you want to end this podcast with.
Look, don't compare yourself to anybody else. Like you spoke about this
Yeah,
before. You look at people
exactly.
online and you go, wow, that person's so successful. They got a six pack, they got this Lamborghini, whatever. Don't compare yourself. Like I know personally, I'm not going to ever be the happiest person in the world. And I look at some of my friends, they're always laughing and joking, but I could potentially be 1% happier. So I'm going to work on that. So
Mm,
I'm working to be my best self and improve my higher vibrations in order to do so. Some people may get a lot of satisfaction out of buying a Lamborghini. I get more satisfaction
sure.
going on a 10-day silent retreat, to be honest with you, but I'm working on myself for myself. So don't compare yourself to what you see online because a lot of the time you just see the highlight reel anyway. They don't show their vulnerability for you to relate to. So just focus on yourself and be consistent with persistence because we don't live 5 day a weeks, we live 7 days a week.
Mhm.
Okay, just because you did your 5 days doesn't mean that you have to fall off on that seventh day or sixth day, because come Monday you'll find it that much harder to start again, and it's a vicious cycle. So you'd be better off just running 7 days at 60% as opposed to just dropping off on your Saturday and Sunday and starting again.
Yeah. You said something that just triggered something for me. When we look at other people's lives online, I mean, even offline, and we see, them, the Lamborghini, the fancy cars, the nice house, and all that stuff. The most common reaction for humans is to go to the negative side, right? They look at, oh, that person has a Lamborghini, oh, they must be a terrible person or whatever. What what is your mindset around that when you look at other people's successes?
I just try to apply what I learned from Vipassana meditations. I meditate on a daily basis, and I just try to invite only positivity into my universe. Of course, it doesn't happen all the time, but I've learned to observe. I don't react. I don't have a clinging or craving for it. I don't have an aversion from it. I just observe. And
Mm,
that's it. I just observe. So that's really helped me in so many areas of my life. And then I try to focus on the sensations within my body before I actually think to react or say anything or have a thought. So that sensation could be a feeling of bliss. That sensation could be my heart rate's getting up, my blood pressure's coming up, whatever. So I focus on that sensation first, and then I try to turn that to observation. And that is it. I just observe. Like I was in San Francisco on the weekend. I was with a friend of mine. Well, I met up with a friend of mine. We went and worked out. He picked me up in his Lamborghini. And he had only had it one day. And he had said to himself at the start of the year, I'm going to get that as soon as I can afford it. So he earned so much money in January that he could afford it by the 16th. By the 16th. And then he picked it up the day before I saw him. Now I could have been, wow, what did you do? That's that, you must be lucky or whatever it may be.
mm,
Instead, I know that that car's not for me. It was nice. I wouldn't drive that, especially here in Idaho. But I was nothing but happy for him. I was truly, genuinely happy because this person had been locked up in prison for 10 years.
mm.
But he utilized his time in prison to change himself, to come out as a different person. And all he does now is help people. He contributes into people's lives, but he invests wisely, and he does well out of that. And I got nothing but mad props and happiness for that guy. So I just try to observe people's success, and that is it. I try not to let it affect you. It'll control you otherwise.
Yeah, I love what you said. It's, we set these goals, and a lot of times people see, when we attain the goals, they see the thing that we shot for rather than the person that we became to attain those goals. And I think that that's the most valuable part of it, is we set these targets, and the fancy car, the nice house, the lavish lifestyle is the effect of who are we becoming, and everything that you've talked about is centered upon that one thing, right? It's who are you, and to slow your life down so that you stop spinning out of control, because your physiological health is just a reflection of your internal emotional health. And you talked about that level of vibration. And one of my favorite books that my mentor started me with, when I started on my journey through in school, was Power versus Force. And looking at the different vibrational states in the map of consciousness, and seeing things through those lenses, and we've gotten a real big eye opener with this pandemic to see into that, of where and how people see things, of what's going on, where you have a reaction of fear, and some people react in a way of joy and bliss, like you were saying. And you can have the same thing going on, but according to your mindset, according to your level of vibration of where you're at, you see things differently, right?
Yeah, for sure. No doubt about it. And like you said, I think it's educational.
Mm,
You have to educate yourself into various things. Now, maybe that book, all the chapters didn't relate to you, but you took out the chapters that did, and that's how you create your own book at the end of the day. And looking at it from a spiritual perspective, whether it be a book like that or like Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now,
mm.
that gives you that understanding. Maybe it's Marcus Aurelius Meditations. Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah.
But all the books that are on my shelf are useless if I'm just a student of learning. You have to be a student of application. Whatever you take from there that that's relating to you, apply it, because it can have nothing but a positive effect on your ROI.
Love that. Right there. That is the capstone of it all. We're just gonna end the show on that.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody.
Exactly. Drop the mic, call in the band. Oh man, Kris, it was great having you on the show and chatting about, all these things. I'd love to have you back on the show because there's a lot more stuff that we can, discuss and all the kind of things surrounding strength training, nutrition, mindset, all of that. Where can people find you and connect with you?
Sure. The easiest way is probably go to my Instagram because I'm on there quite often and I've got quite a number of platforms. So it's Kris, Chris, and my last name is Gethin, Gethin, Kris Gethin.
Cool. We'll put that in the show notes and everybody connect with Kris on Instagram. Kris, it was great having you on the show. We got to have you back. All right, man.
Thank you very much. It would be my absolute pleasure. I look forward to it.